Over to Mr. Kothari, he'll take it forward.
So, namaskar and thank you. Welcome to the Circular Symposium Mission Zero Discharge. Circular economy is a subject which I think is not very new, not very much talked about in the foundry industry. Though, from my experience, foundry practices circular economy from the day the industry started. What we'll try to do in this session is try to bring this thought together of why, what, and what next. So with us we have speakers who come with this rich experience of what Swati ji brings is the rich experience of international policy, why circular economy, what goes behind circular economy. And we have practicing foundrymen like Mr. Reddy and Sugamji, part of a cluster of the Foundry Association. There's a corporate and there's a growing MSME to large industry. So we are representing two very important sections of the foundry sector, along with National Productivity Council on how we can build an ecosystem where we are able to enhance the circular economy contribution the foundry is doing from where it is, from melting scrap to and continuously recycling to becoming near and nearer to a zero discharge. So I invite Swati ji to take charge and walk us through her experience. Thank you.
Can I have my slides on, please? नहीं, ये connected नहीं है. आप वहाँ से उसको run कर दीजिए. This is just for my conference. Thank you so much, Manish and IFC for having me here. Just a disclaimer that I'm not from the foundry sector. So if you find any of my suggestions not relevant, just feel free to hold your thoughts. I've worked for many years in the circular economy and resource management space at national as well as global policy level. And my insights are more from a perspective of how can foundry sector transition to circular practices. So maybe some slides to take inspiration from, but you're free to pick and choose. I represent a Norwegian agency, Grid Arendal, which is Global Resources Information Database. It's based in Arendal, a town 3 kilometers south of Norway. The agency was set up in 1989 by the Norwegian Ministry of Environment to support environmentally sustainable development by collaborating majorly with UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, but also we work with several development partners globally and with many countries, close to 40 to 45 in Latin America, Africa, Asia Pacific region. Coming to, just giving a context of the waste sector for your reference. Globally, if you look at the total waste generation, it's expected to reach about 3.4 billion tons by 2050, which means that's close to 69% increase from 2016 with the increase in GDP and population. If we maybe just look at solid waste management for your concern, there's close to 2.24 billion tons of municipal solid waste that is being generated. This is as per a World Bank report, and only 55% of it is being managed in controlled facilities. India is amongst one of the top 3 countries that produce huge quantums of waste in the G20 list of countries. So what we are seeing is that waste generation is directly proportional to affluence. So as countries are becoming more economically affluent, which means from say least developed to developing to developed, we are seeing that they're also becoming more wasteful. If we look at the resource issue in general, I mean, how many of you here in the group have heard about the Earth Overshoot Day? I'm not. Yeah, so just for your reference and context who are not aware about what is an Earth Overshoot Day, it's basically every year a time or a number of months in which all the resources that the planet generates, they get consumed. And the last Earth Overshoot Day, which was close to say 11 months in a year, was in 1970s. In the past decade, in about 6 or 7 months of a year, we are consuming most of the resources that the planet is generating for us. So what we are seeing is that resource use has quadrupled in 50 years, outpacing population growth. And what we're seeing is that growth of extraction is outpacing recovery and recycling by a factor of close to 3 times. And vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions, close to 70%, are ultimately generated through material handling and use. So clearly, there is a need for more circular practices to adopt, not just at a cityscape, individual level, but even in the ecosystem of businesses, enterprises, as well as industries. Now, if we're all sitting in, Kolkata, it's Kolkata, Calcutta, such a beautiful city. Now, if you look at our cities, what we see is that cities consume close to 75% of the natural resources globally. They generate about 50% of global waste and generate about 60 to 80% of carbon emissions. And most of the times, if we look at what are the models that our cities adopt in general, it's majorly linear. You can just take the example of maybe the municipal waste management systems of cities. Residents generate waste, it gets collected, it's mostly mixed. From collection, it may go to, the last treatment options from a waste hierarchy perspective. Could be incineration, could be landfilling. I come from Delhi, where about 70 to 80% of the waste that the city claims to treat gets treated in 3 polluting incinerators. So what I mean to emphasize is that while our cities say that they are managing their waste, they're really not putting the resources back into the ecosystem. It's a very wasteful cycle that on which our cities are built. Then coming to a more core topic, which is probably much relevant to the group here, is residual waste. This could be contaminated soil, ceramics, gypsum board, linoleum, leather, textiles, detergent and cleaners, pesticides, pharmaceutical waste. Residual waste is also waste that neither gets recycled or it gets reused. It could be due to lack of processes in place. It could be due to lack of technological options. It could be due to lack of innovation and research in the aspect, and because of which this semi-non-hazardous or hazardous waste, it lies into various categories. It mostly is left untreated. You could look at industrial waste to fall into the category of residual waste. And then where does it goes? What we see is that crude dumping of waste occupies close to 1250 hectares of precious land in India each year. And as a country, land is extremely important to us. We are the world's most populated nation. So for every person to survive, to have their own resources, land is close to platinum or diamonds for us, or should be for us. There are close to 2120 existing dump sites as per CPCB's annual report. What we've seen over the years is that landfills were originally located far off from the city. So for Delhi, say 40, 50 years ago, the landfill sites that were chosen, they were merely villages or areas where no one used to live. But today, those landfills are very much a part of the city. So what we're seeing is that development is mushrooming in a way, or the urbanization is happening so rapidly that now we have landfill facing sabji mandis, we have landfill facing malls, we have expressway roads that face landfills. Landfills have become pretty much a heart of our urbanized or semi-urbanized lives. And it's estimated that more than 10,000 hectares of urban land is locked in these dump sites. The point that I'm trying to make is that land is not a resource that we need to waste on dump sites. We need to look at more alternative mechanisms, more innovative mechanisms to manage our waste. And these sites are also sites which house all kinds of waste, not just municipal waste, but biomedical waste, to some extent industrial waste that you could find its way through illegal dumpings. So just imagine all kinds of waste coming to these sites. When was the last time anyone in this group visited a landfill? So I think in my professional career of about 14, 15 years, I've climbed close to 50 plus garbage hills. And I feel, it's my personal perspective, that every human in their lifetime should climb a mountain, a garbage hill, to get a perspective of what they shouldn't do with their environment, and also see people and the ecosystem that is thriving around landfills in today's time. There is a whole city that's living out there. Maybe the privileged don't live there, but the poorest of the poor are living there and consuming those resources. Coming to circular economy, I was through the previous slides maybe just trying to set a context of why we need circularity in our lives, in our businesses, in our ecosystem in general. What we are seeing in today's time, where we are challenged by the triple planetary crisis of pollution, biodiversity loss, and climate change, is that linear business models are increasingly challenged by shortages of inputs, global disruptions, including the triple planetary crisis. And while linear business models are unlikely to disappear, we also see that there are newer circular ones that are emerging. So we're seeing a constant shift in acceptance of circular models in businesses and industries today. If you look at the chart, which sort of, how do I go back? Okay, so maybe there's one diagram that's not running through. But when we say circular economy, we are looking at a system that maintains the value of products, materials, and resources in the economy for as long as possible, while also minimizing waste generation. Circularity allows businesses to increase their resilience, the ability to prepare, respond to, recover from disruptions, and also reach new markets and customers, while reducing the impact of climate change, resource tensions, and environmental degradation. So this is a very world-renowned model on circular economy. It's called the butterfly diagram. And you imagine this model as a butterfly where the blue lines or all the blue lines signify the technical cycle, whereas the green lines signify the biological cycle. And what the diagram says is that both the cycles need to run in harmony with each other. In the technical cycle, signified by the blue lines, products and materials are kept in circulation constantly through processes such as reuse, repair, remanufacturing, refurbishing, recycling. Whereas in the biological cycle, the nutrients from biodegradable materials are returned to the earth to regenerate nature. So imagine composting as a biological cycle where you're consuming food, there is food waste, you're making compost or biogas out of it, and then you're sort of enriching the soil by putting that compost or the slurry from the biogas back to the soil. So giving nature time to regenerate itself, at the same time consuming its resources. We often talk of recycling. If you look at the technical cycle, recycling comes at the end of the butterfly wing. And what I want to emphasize here is that the more in your businesses you are in the inner wing of the butterfly, you are more circular in nature. So if you're reducing, redistributing, remanufacturing, repairing, you're more in the inside of the butterfly wing, and you're more sustainable or circular in nature, apart from the fact that you're just recycling. So I think while we are recycling as industries, maybe in the foundry sector, there is an acceptance to recycle more. We should really aim to come towards the inner wing. Like, how can we redistribute more? How can we repair more? How can we refurbish more or remanufacture more? Now, this is probably just a wasteful picture of a city which generates different kinds of waste. And what we really need to make a choice between is that whether we want to externalize the waste from our city, or we want to keep it within the city in a closed loop. If you travel across the country, I'm sure you must have observed that most of our class 2 towns today are constantly under construction. So you visit once, you visit twice, you visit thrice. They are struggling to navigate. Cities today are struggling to navigate their waste management systems, be it industrial waste, if the city is an industrial hub, be it municipal waste, be it biomedical waste, be it sanitation, and including the alarming levels of pollution that is being caused due to it. So clearly, closed loop is important. It's imperative to manage the waste at source and also to appropriate handle different categories of waste. If you're aware, in 2019, the Government of India, and specifically Niti Aayog and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they had shared the draft National Resource Efficiency Policy. And if you clearly look at it, it's based on pretty much the global principles of refurbishing, reusing, repairing materials, and pushing industries to sort of relook at their approach and follow a more closed loop approach while planning industrial systems, which is looking at remanufacturing, recycling, reducing at various stages of industrial production. But there is still good hope. Very recently, at the World Economic Forum annual meet, there was this analysis report that came out, and there are some really positive findings, which is that businesses across industries are increasingly embracing circularity. So say if 3 years back there were only 40% of businesses engaging in circularity that considered it as important or extremely important, today we have about 75% of the businesses globally that acknowledge and accept the importance of circularity and transition to circular closed loop systems. And there is a prediction that 3 years from now, there'll be 95% acceptance. So clearly, we're looking at a more hopeful circular ecosystem in coming years. This figure sort of highlights the key enabling strategies for circularity. What it sort of says in a nutshell is that the shift towards a circular economy is multifaceted in nature. It requires participation of many actors. Simply industries or businesses won't be able to do it all at once or completely alone. There is a deep-rooted integration mechanism that has to be created where academia, research, science to policy interface, and enterprises come together along with business and industries to make this transitional change. So it will not happen all at once tomorrow. This is a decadal change that will take its own time, but it requires the right amount of attention, integration of various stakeholders that are there sectorally. Specifically for the foundry sector, as we all know in the country, it's one of the second largest industries in India. They are pivotal in India's circular economy growth. What I previously said, that collaboration among stakeholders is the key. Also, the integration of science policy interface is crucial here. We also need increased investment in sustainable innovation so that MSMEs are not faltering behind into this transition. Energy emissions efficiency and emission reduction should be the key to transition, considering we are, one of the globally leading emitters of greenhouse gas emissions. Policy and regulations are extremely key for circular economy. So where, of course, extended producer responsibility for various waste streams has come in, why not EPR for metal industries? It's just a thought, but what you all think about it. Also, green initiatives promoted by the Indian government and linkages with the MSME sector as well as with the foundry sector is crucial. Financial incentives for sustainable manufacturing practices is also extremely important. And last but not the least, waste management and byproduct utilization. As I said, recycling is the outer loop, but in some sense you start from there and come towards more inner circle of the butterfly diagram that we talked about. So I leave you with these thoughts, and I hope that at the end of today's sessions, we are able to take back a few of these elements into our approaches for circular transition. Thank you so much for having me here.